She bold, she don't break. Let's go. I don't wait, I don't chase. If you fumble me, that's a mistake. High heels, gold chains, lip gloss popping, no time.
On the morning of March 2nd, 2025, a mother answered her phone. What she heard next would haunt her forever. "Mom, help, I shot her. I didn't mean to." Those words came from her own son. 32-year-old Terrence Miles had called his mother, moments after shooting his girlfriend in the neck. The victim? 19-year-old Davonye Cummings, a young woman who had given birth to twins 11 days earlier. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, pregnant women and new mothers face a 74% higher risk of domestic violence homicide. The weeks after childbirth are particularly dangerous. But this wasn't a random statistic. This was a real person. A teenager, a new mother of 4 children, whose life ended in an Oakland apartment on a Tuesday morning. Today, we examine what happened in those final moments. We look at the warning signs that were missed, and we ask the hard questions about how a convicted felon with 5 prior felonies was able to get his hands on a gun. This is the story of Davonye Cummings. Davonye Cummings was 19 years old, just 19. At an age when most people are figuring out college or their first real job, she was already a mother of 4 children. 11 days before her death, Davonye had given birth to twins. Twins. Can you imagine the exhaustion, the overwhelming responsibility of caring for 2 newborns, while also taking care of 2 other children? She lived in Oakland, California, the 2600 block of 74th Avenue to be exact. This is East Oakland, a neighborhood where gunshots aren't uncommon, where young people grow up fast, where being 19 with 4 kids isn't as rare as it should be. Davonye was in a relationship with Terrence Miles. He was 32 years old, 13 years older than her. Think about that age gap for a moment. When he was 19, she was 6 years old. The morning of March 2nd started like any other Tuesday for Davonye. She was at home, likely caring for her newborn twins. The older children may have been getting ready for school. Normal morning sounds, normal morning routine. But this wasn't going to be a normal day, because Terrence Miles was about to make a choice that would destroy multiple families forever. So who was Terrence Miles? Let's be clear about something right from the start. This was not his first brush with the law, not even close. Terrence Miles had 5 prior felony convictions. 5. These weren't minor infractions or youthful mistakes. We're talking about serious crimes, including assault with a deadly weapon. 5 felonies. That's a pattern. That's someone who has repeatedly made choices to harm others. Someone who has been through the court system multiple times. Someone who has been given chances and thrown them away. Think about what this means for Davonye. She was in a relationship with a man who had a documented history of violence. A man who had used weapons to hurt people before. And she was 19 years old, with 4 children to protect. The age difference here cannot be ignored. When you're 32 and dating someone who's 19, that's not just a number gap. That's a power gap, life experience gap, financial gap, emotional maturity gap. At 32, Miles had lived through his 20s. He'd made his mistakes and clearly hadn't learned from them. Davonye was still a teenager, still figuring out who she was, while caring for 4 children. Now here's where this gets even worse. As a convicted felon, Terrence Miles was legally prohibited from owning a firearm. It's federal law. If you have a felony conviction, you cannot legally possess a gun. But somehow, some way, he had gotten his hands on a Glock pistol. The same Glock that police would later find in the bedroom, next to Davonye's body. March 2nd, 2025. Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock. Most people are getting ready for work. Kids are eating breakfast. Coffee is brewing. Normal Tuesday morning activities. happening all across Oakland. But at the apartment on the 2600 block of 74th Avenue, something terrible was about to happen. We don't know exactly what triggered the violence that morning. Was it an argument? Was it planned? We may never know the complete truth, but we do know this. At approximately 8 in the morning, Terrence Miles pulled the trigger. The weapon was a Glock pistol, a serious firearm. Not something that accidentally goes off. Not something you wave around carelessly. This is a gun designed to kill. Davonye was shot in the neck. The neck. Think about how close you have to be to someone to shoot them in the neck. This wasn't a random shot. This wasn't across a room. This was up close, personal. A neck wound from a Glock. There's no coming back from that. Davonye Cummings died quickly. She never had a chance to say goodbye to her children. Never had a chance to hold her 11-day-old twins one more time. And what did Terrence Miles do after he killed her? He called his mother. Not 911, not the police, not paramedics who might have been able to help. He called his mom. The crime scene tells its own story. Police found Davonye's body in the apartment. The Glock pistol was recovered from the bedroom, the same room where she died. Miles made no attempt to hide the weapon. No attempt to clean up. No attempt to make it look like anything other than what it was, murder. Now imagine being Terrence Miles' mother. You're at home, maybe having your morning coffee, maybe watching the news, and your phone rings. It's your son, and the first words out of his mouth are, "Mom, help, I shot her. I didn't mean to." What do? This is your child, the boy you raised, the man you love, despite his many mistakes, despite his criminal record, despite everything, he's still your son. But he just confessed to shooting someone, to killing someone, and that someone was a 19-year-old mother of 4. This woman had to make an impossible choice: protect her son or do the right thing. Think about the weight of that moment, the absolute horror of realizing what your child has done. She chose to call 911. She chose to turn in her own son. Can you imagine how hard that must have been? To pick up the phone, dial those 3 numbers, and tell police that your son just confessed to murder? Let's examine what Miles actually said. "Mom, help. I shot her. I didn't mean to." 3 parts to that statement. First, "Mom, help." That's panic. That's fear. That's someone who knows they're in serious trouble. Second, "I shot her." Not the gun went off, or there was an accident. He said, "I shot her." That's an admission. That's taking responsibility for pulling the trigger. But then, "I didn't mean to." Really? You didn't mean to? You're a 32-year-old man with 5 prior felonies. You illegally obtained a Glock pistol. You were close enough to shoot someone in the neck. But you didn't mean to? That phone call became the key piece of evidence, a voluntary confession made to his own mother, who then did what any decent person would do. She called police. Police responded immediately. When you get a call about a shooting with a confession from the shooter's family, you move fast. Officers arrived at the 2600 block of 74th Avenue within minutes. They found exactly what Miles' mother had told them they would find: Davonye's body, the Glock pistol, and Terrence Miles, who was arrested on the spot. No chase, no resistance, no drama. Just handcuffs and a ride to jail. The investigation that followed was straightforward. Sometimes cases are complex, with missing evidence and unanswered questions. This wasn't one of those cases. The Glock pistol was found right there in the bedroom. The same bedroom where Davonye died. Miles made no attempt to hide it. No attempt to dispose of it. No attempt to claim it belonged to someone else. The medical examiner's report was clear. Single gunshot wound to the neck. Fatal injury. The angle of the wound, the proximity, everything confirmed what we already knew. This was close range. This was intentional. What the crime scene didn't show was also telling. There were no signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture. No defensive wounds on Davonye's hands or arms. She wasn't fighting for her life, because she probably never saw it coming. Remember, this is a 19-year-old girl who had given birth 11 days earlier. She was likely exhausted, focused on caring for her newborn twins. She trusted the man she was living with, and that trust cost her everything. The charges against Terrence Miles came quickly. First-degree murder. That means prosecutors believe this was planned, premeditated. Not a crime of passion, but a deliberate decision to kill. Domestic violence charges were also filed, because that's what this was. Domestic violence taken to its most extreme conclusion. When abuse escalates, when control becomes murder. This is what happens. And then there's the charge that really highlights the system failure here. Felon in possession of a firearm. Miles was legally prohibited from owning that gun. Yet somehow, he got one anyway. Terrence Miles was taken to Santa Rita Jail in Dublin, California. He's been there since March 2nd. No bail. No chance of getting out while he waits for trial. And honestly, that's exactly where he belongs. His court appearance was scheduled for April 1st. That's when he was supposed to enter his plea. Guilty or not guilty. Though with his own recorded confession and all the physical evidence, there really isn't much room for doubt here. But here's what we need to talk about. How did this happen? How did a man with 5 prior felony convictions, including assault with a deadly weapon, get his hands on a gun? Federal law is clear. If you're a convicted felon, you cannot legally purchase a firearm. Background checks are supposed to catch this. Gun stores are supposed to deny the sale. The system is supposed to work. But the system failed Davonye Cummings. Somehow, somewhere, Terrence Miles obtained that Glock pistol. Was it a private sale? A straw purchase? Did someone buy it for him? We don't know. But what we do know is that he shouldn't have had it. And let's talk about the age gap here. 32 and 19. When relationships have that kind of age difference, especially when the younger person is still a teenager, there are inherent power imbalances, financial control, emotional manipulation, social isolation. Were there warning signs that people missed? Friends who saw concerning behavior? Family members who worried about Davonye? Social services that could have intervened? We may never know. Oakland, California sees approximately 80 to 100 homicides per year. That's about 1 every 3 to 4 days. In a city of just over 400,000 people, that's a significant rate of violence. But domestic violence murders are different. They're preventable in ways that random street crime often isn't, because there are usually warning signs, previous incidents, escalating behavior, calls to police. According to national statistics, domestic violence is the leading cause of death for pregnant women and new mothers, more than car accidents, more than cancer, more than any other single cause. Think about that for a moment. Davonye had just given birth, 11 days earlier. Her body was still recovering. Her hormones were still adjusting. She was sleep-deprived, overwhelmed, and completely dependent on others for support. She was in one of the most vulnerable states a woman can be in. And the man who should have been protecting her, the father of her twins, was the one who killed her. So where does this case stand today? Terrence Miles remains in Santa Rita Jail prison, awaiting his day in court. He's been there since March 2nd, and he's not getting out anytime soon. No bail means no freedom, until this case is resolved. When he does appear before a judge, he'll face some serious decisions. With first-degree murder charges, he's looking at life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's if prosecutors decide to seek the maximum penalty. And given his criminal history, given the nature of this crime, that seems likely. He could try to negotiate a plea deal. Maybe plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for a lesser sentence. But here's the thing about plea deals. They require the prosecution to agree. And when you have a recorded confession, when you have physical evidence, when you have a victim who is 19 years old with 4 children, prosecutors aren't usually in a generous mood. If this case goes to trial, and honestly, it probably won't, but if it does, Miles' defense options are limited. He can't claim he didn't do it. His own mother turned him in. He can't claim self-defense. Davonye was 19 years old and had just given birth. He can't claim it was an accident. You don't accidentally shoot someone in the neck with a Glock pistol. Really, his only option might be to claim some kind of mental health defense. But with 5 prior felony convictions, that's a hard sell. This looks like a pattern of violence that finally escalated to murder. But let's step back from the legal proceedings for a moment. Because this isn't really about Terrence Miles. This is about Davonye Cummings, a 19-year-old woman whose life was cut short in the most brutal way possible. Davonye should be alive today. She should be caring for her twins, watching them grow, seeing their first smiles. She should be helping her older children with homework, planning birthday parties, worrying about normal parent things like bedtimes and vegetables and screen time. Instead, her children are growing up without their mother. Those 11-day-old twins will never know the woman who gave birth to them. They'll never hear her voice singing lullabies, never feel her arms holding them when they're scared or sick or sad. And the older children? They have to live with the knowledge that their mother was murdered by someone she trusted. Someone who was supposed to care for her. Someone who was supposed to protect their family. The community in Oakland has lost someone too. A young woman who could have contributed so much to the world. Who could have raised children who make a difference. Who could have lived for 60 or 70 more years. Making memories and building relationships and adding value to the lives of everyone around her. But here's what we can do with Davonye's story. We can learn from it. We can recognize the warning signs. We can support women who are in dangerous relationships. We can advocate for stronger background check systems that keep guns away from convicted felons. If you're in an abusive relationship, or if you know someone who is, please get help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The number is 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START to 88788 or visit thehotline.org. These resources are free. They're confidential, and they can help you make a safety plan, because leaving an abusive relationship is often the most dangerous time for victims. It requires planning, it requires support, it requires people who understand what you're going through. For young women especially, if someone significantly older is trying to control your life, if they're isolating you from friends and family, if they have a history of violence, these are red flags. These are warning signs that the relationship could become deadly. And for all of us, if we see something concerning, if we know someone who might be in danger, we need to speak up. We need to offer support. We need to be willing to make difficult phone calls and have uncomfortable conversations. Because Davonye Cummings deserved better. She deserved to live. She deserved to raise her children. She deserved to see her twins take their first steps and say their first words. We'll continue following this case as it moves through the court system. Subscribe to this channel for updates on Terrence Miles' legal proceedings and for more true crime stories that need to be told. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. But most importantly, remember Davonye. Remember that she was more than just a victim. She was a person, a mother, a daughter, someone who mattered. And maybe, just maybe, by telling her story, we can prevent this from happening to someone else.